Welcome to Plugged In Chatham-Kent, your business podcast. I'm Andrew, work in economic development. I'm here. We have a bit of a special day today going on, talking about local media, in particular print local media. I say print, it's an evolution of print. It's a little more than just print, but I wanted to touch on a bit of history, talking about the print media history of things. And looking back, I was doing a little research. Halifax Gazette was Canada's first paper in 1752. So we're talking about an industry that's been around for a very long time, has an excellent heritage to it. It's also been one that's been through some major shifts as communication has come about and changed, and the advent of things like radio, the advent of all of these different things that are out there. One thing that I believe is essential to any community is having a strong local media presence and well-informed and engaged media, especially. On that note, I'm joined by two local experts in media. If you want to go around the table, we'll start here.
Sure. My name is Rodrigues. I'm the media sales manager for Post Media here in Chatham, representing the Chatham Daily News, Wallsburg Courier Press, and Chatham-Kent This Week.
Wonderful. And?
I'm Bruce Corcoran. I'm the general manager of the Chatham Voice.
Thanks for both being here. I really appreciate getting your perspectives and talking about local media. We're going to talk about radio and some other things next week, but today I'm really glad to have both of you here. Also in my notes, I wanted to mention that we did invite Blenheim News Tribune, and I have a letter from Pete over there who apologized that he couldn't be here today. Reached out to Tilbury Times, Thamesville Herald, and some of the others around the area, and they unfortunately either couldn't make it or time didn't allow. For some reason, it sounds like people are really busy, have busy lives. I don't know, but I appreciate you making time to be here. So that's awesome. So I'm going to dive right into it because I've come up with some questions, and the first one is we'll start this way if that's okay, and then
Sure.
We'll go around. What's your vision? What are your visions for local media? What are some of your goals for local media for talking around this area?
Okay. So first off, I wanted to say thanks again for the opportunity to join this panel and have this conversation. I think it's great to have the opportunity to highlight the importance of local media. And to play off of your first question, it's really critical as local media to ensure we're going with a local first priority. As part of a larger newspaper chain, we certainly have elements of regional or national scope, but it's our mandate to ensure that we're providing that local coverage because there are stories to be told. Some of them are positive. Unfortunately, some of them are negative, but it's our job to report them from an unbiased perspective and to ensure we're providing fact-based information to help tie what's happening in and around the community.
And let's face it, sometimes the negative ones are the ones people really want to read anyway. But what was it? Did I read recently about somebody going through a drive-through wearing no pants? I don't know. It's
that's the beauty of sometimes not having to include a photo.
That's very true. Bruce, what are your thoughts? Your goals, your vision for local media?
Well, for us, we don't have the corporate tie-in, so we are hyper-local. Everything that appears in our paper is local only, Chatham-Kent based. There are some times where we may do a story or report a story that's outside the area, but it pertains to something that's taking place here. But it's basically a hyper-local feel, and it's delivering information, like you say, good and bad, to the public, to digest and to inform. It could be a featured article on somebody that's doing something very special in the community, or it could be a news story on council, or good or bad that's occurring. Tax hikes, people are always up in arms about when that occurs.
Gotcha. I want to mention, and I didn't say this off the top, I also reached out to CBC to see if they're interested in coming out because we do have a local, the Windsor area covers Chatham-Kent and Sarnia, Lambton as well. And so if they're listening, I did send you a message just in case you go and you're writing that nasty email to me right now. I'm just letting you know. I did send you a message. On local, on regional news, and one of the things that I have definitely seen changed over 15, 20 years is the change of going from sort of an hourly news cycle to just it's 24 hours a day. It's always on. How are you addressing that? How are you addressing that type of need to almost be basically always on? Start with you, Bruce.
Well, it's you say an hourly news cycle. We're a weekly, so you could say, okay, it could be theoretically a weekly news cycle. But how do you deal with that when your paper comes out once a week, and then what do you fill the gaps with as a fire occurs, a robbery, something like that? I mean, that's the advent of social media, the advent of the internet, all that. You take advantage of that, and you can get the immediate news out in a very timely manner. 24/7, we don't really have the staff to do that. I don't think anybody here, you could even argue with any radio station, they can't do the full 24/7. There's world news that will pool through,
Sure.
of course, in a 24/7 cycle, but you try to spread it out as much as you can, whether you're checking your emails in the evening and can quickly post something out either straight to social media or through your website and then onto social media. That's how we handle it.
Yeah, and similarly, I mean, we certainly don't have a 24/7 staff, but as part of a network, we have the ability to feed that information through our digital platforms. But most importantly is, while some of our papers may be daily, some of them are weekly, the news flows to all of our platforms as quickly as we can get it there, especially with our digital. And what may happen is a breaking story may hit the website, we may speak to it, and then we may write a more in-depth story as a follow-up that might land in the paper. But oftentimes you'll see articles that aren't necessarily carbon copy between platforms. In some cases they are, but we ensure that we're pushing out what is timely and critical as quickly as we can. We have staff working 7 days a week, and it gives us the ability to ensure that we're pushing that information out and providing the coverage that people want.
How do you maintain, that's one of the things that has really come to bother me is the word fake news, but I think it's sort of the creation of trying to be first to news sometimes. How are you both maintaining internalistic integrity? Words are hard sometimes, and I don't speak very well. But integrity within the news that's reported and within that sort of aspect.
Yeah. So,
if
if I may, integrity at the end of the day is core to our place in the community. Without that, we don't have a product. If we can't be truthful and do our due diligence to make sure that the facts we're printing or pushing online are as accurate as we can absolutely get, and we do our due diligence through follow-up, phone calls, emails, correspondence, we have to do everything we can to ensure what we're talking about is on point. Otherwise, we lose our credibility, and our institutions have been around in some cases hundreds of years. Our credibility in the community, our credibility with our readers, local and abroad, is all, contingent on us doing our due diligence up front before something hits the media.
Yeah, fact checking is the paramount. I mean, you talk about the first to be published or on the internet. I've seen a lot of times where people get the information out there, but their quest to be first is wrong.
Yeah.
People, we're talking about the death of Gordon Lightfoot. That was, Pat Burns when he was battling cancer before he passed away. People were reporting that he passed.
Yeah.
And we're talking not just fake news, but these are real media outlets that's goofed by not doing the proper fact checking.
What was the phrase? My death has been greatly overrated, or something like that for the famous. Yeah, looking at, as I said, the letter from Pete over at Blenheim News Tribune. He said 140 years. He's celebrating 140 years in business, and that's where, that's the sort of thing that I look at some of these bloggers or some of these non-journalistic folks out there who aren't doing that type of work to fact check things, and I think it's such a shame. It really it's frustrating. I find it very frustrating when it's just here's some information, here's a large diatribe that doesn't speak to the truth, So I appreciate that you've got people out there doing that and doing that great work.
And if I may as well, I mean, it's also important beyond fact checking is to remain impartial.
Absolutely.
It's not our place to create clicks or do different things like that for the sake of it. The news should provide value in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's not for us to over-exaggerate or spin or play things against each other's for the sake of eyeballs.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, a huge difference between fake news or directed news per se, like a blog, is it's a person's opinion that's filling up the bulk of the commentary, whereas a news story is he said, she said, this is where the information came from, and articulation and linking and attribution. That's the key. And if you're looking at something on the internet and you're wondering if it's correct, if it's accurate, start to search around before you republish it. If you're republishing a lie, a fabrication, check to see if there's corroborating information out there, other news sources, ones that you trust. Look that way rather than just say, "Oh, geez, that's an interesting meme. Let's just post that," and then it's no, you're spreading falsities.
It's one of the questions that I'm not picking on any businesses out there, but I get it from time to time where they go, "We're the number one, or we're the biggest, or we have the most in the world, Canada." You pick a thing, and I'll say, "Have you really looked into it? Is it really? Are you the?" And usually a little bit of digging, and they go, "Okay, well, we're the biggest in our minds." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. You can be the biggest in your minds." But anyhow, I want to talk about the business model of that you're both encountering, and you started off by saying you have slightly different business models. You're working on one focus of local. You've got a larger chain behind. It's two unique business models. I think it's really fascinating and really useful to have two different types of different types of models, but still providing content that's local. We've seen huge changes in the past 20 years. I mean, I think of Craigslist, Kijiji, those sort of small one-offs that are picking bits and pieces of what was in the paper. How have things shifted? How have things changed for you? Who wants to start with that one?
So, one of the key words that we toss around, and it's probably something that impacts a lot of media, but in our space specifically, is the term disruption.
Disruption.
We've been disrupted by, initially back in the 90s, if you will, in the early days of the internet, Kijiji.
Yeah.
That disrupted our classified business. And then there were multiple things that happened. The advent of the internet itself was a massive disruption, and it continues to be so. And then you have social media and many other things. But our ability to navigate through that and evolve and adapt is what has been an ongoing challenge. And we're continually having to do that because technology, the media consumption habits of the public, the business as a whole continues to be disrupted by many different factors. But it's on us as business people to manage through that and continue to provide what our readers and also our advertisers who support us want and need from our platforms.
Gotcha. Bruce, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's very true. I mean, you're providing exactly what your readers want to read and need to read. You almost have to say, okay, this is what they want to read, but you also have to feed them what they need to help educate them as well. And same, we have to think about the advertiser. You want to help promote local business, shop local, buy local. You want to encourage a healthy local community because it's good for everyone. In terms of the challenges and disruptions, as Aaron said, I mean, you wonder if you could be in a crystal, or if a news executive from 20 years ago had a crystal ball and could say, what should I do? Here's the internet. I'm sure most everyone at a daily or larger broadcast news would handle things differently. I mean, let's face it. I don't think mainstream media knew how to address the internet. Then suddenly there's a massive advent of all this free news and information. I believe it was Craigslist that went to the San Francisco Chronicle and said, hey, do you want to get on board with this? And they basically said, no, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And do you think they'd like to reshape that idea? That's wrong. Exactly. It's just how to address it now. You can't ignore the internet. It's huge. It's part of both of our businesses on a daily basis. Yeah. Like posting information to our websites and sharing it through social media to get eyeballs on it, help spread that information for the public.
Absolutely. What do you think of paywalls? What do you think of the whole paywall idea? I think the Windsor Star went to a paywall system, if I recall. I can't remember if they've retracted or not. But what do you think of using that? Because you're not using them either of you right now.
Well, yeah, we're a free paper, so we wouldn't use a paywall because the content is free to the public. But I'm a fan of paywalls personally from a daily newspaper, larger metro daily style. Okay. And I think that's one of the areas where corporate missed the boat so many years ago is like, the content has value. Back when you had those big newsrooms and all those investigative reporters, where was that money coming from? Circulation. So that was a monetized content,
Yeah.
per se, and not directly. Oh, the reporter's making money. It's because of what they're doing that earns the newspaper money.
Yeah.
And by handing it out for free, I think globally there was a mistake held there.
What do you
So in terms of the paywalls themselves, many companies have experimented with different types. Post Media has different versions of things in play in different markets. Again, trying to find that right fix to provide balance between ensuring that we're not inhibiting the content, but at the same time make sure we're paying the bills and continuing to have the ability to provide that content. And if you look at larger international products like the New York Times, much of what they do is behind a paywall.
Yes.
But they're in a position where they can do that.
Yeah.
Many other community products, especially ones like ours, we're still trying to find that right fix that works to find balance between offering free content and content that might be behind a paywall that might be more of a premium model.
That's fair. No, and if there was a magic solution, I'm certain somebody it would be out there already.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious as to see what that's going to play like over the next 10 years, 20 years. Do you have, I hate to ask you what your insider thoughts, but I'm going to ask, what are your insider thoughts? Where do you think it's going to go? What do you think we're going to see in the next 10 years in terms of how this can continue forward? Because you said the cat's out of the bag on that one. It's people have certain expectations, but we're seeing. I'm going to keep talking. I apologize. We're seeing things like Disney Plus and Netflix and these other subscription models becoming a little more prevalent in society, and people are starting to get used to that idea again of it's not just free. Hulu was free, and now it's not. So those types of things are changing because people are recognizing there's value in the content. So where do you anticipate something changing in the next 10 years?
I think that there will be change,
Okay.
but to say what that change will look like and how it approaches a market, say, like Toronto versus a market like Chatham-Kent, the dynamics of the population base, the dynamics of the local media, it's not as hyper-fragmented here as it is, say, in Toronto. Sure. So you can't be the only one putting things behind a subscription model when very similar content is available for free elsewhere. So there's no silver bullet, and there's no one brush paints all markets or communities. I think what it's going to have to be done is looked at from an analytical perspective, what makes sense, and try it out and make sure that it doesn't further negatively impact our newspapers and our audience at the end of the day.
Bruce, any thoughts on that one? I know I'm just throwing that one
Evolution
out.
of the industry. I think you're going to see more of a focus on local, because the way people can access national, international news in a print version versus online version. It's the push is more towards immediacy, the internet. Okay, everyone's watching about the coronavirus. Where do you go? You go online, and if you've got a preferred site, whether it's CNN, CBC, people go there and they find that information. They may follow up with more detailed information either online at a daily paper or in the next edition, but they're going to get the snippet, the immediate information online. I think that'll only continue. In terms of a paywall, exactly what Aaron said, what happens in Metro Toronto, New York, etc., much different than what would happen in a smaller community such as Chatham-Kent. I mean, you could look at an ESPN style where they have some ESPN Plus or whatever you want to say, that content, certain stories, certain features, certain writers hidden behind a paywall. But most of the content, if you can get it everywhere else, it's free to digest.
I guess the other thing about a paywall is then those are advertising, say, along with the content. The advertisers wouldn't get those eyes, right? If it's only subscription based. How are you helping? I want to transition into the discussion about businesses. How are you helping local businesses, or even regional businesses? How are you helping them in terms of promotions, in terms of advertising? What's your model in that sort of sense? How are you helping out with that? Who wants to take on that one?
I can start. Well, obviously the first way you help local businesses is to get their information out to the public. You get the eyeballs on their ads, so to speak, whether it's in print, whether it's on online options, whether they're scrolling down the side of our web page or flipping through our paper. You want to get the eyeballs on the advertisements and encourage the reader to go visit those advertisers, because again, buy local, shop local, it supports the healthy local economy that way. And that's the thing. And then you deal with businesses if they have something very interesting occurring. Unfortunately, there are a few that have retired and other closures that have occurred recently here. You highlight that, you showcase that, but you showcase the openings, the key events that businesses are doing. Especially if they're helping a widespread section of the population, you want to share that good news.
Yeah, I was picking on both of your sites earlier today, making some notes, and I saw this is an article that would probably never be covered anywhere else other than locally. Was about the heart sculpture, the metal work that's been done over at the Co to showcase. It was a lock heart, so you can put locks on it, and I think it's really cool. Like, that would never be covered somewhere else. So I think that's great. Did you have thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. So the way we approach it is, echoing what Bruce was saying with regards to the local focus, is ensuring that we're doing everything we can to get the businesses in front of the people they want to be in front of, regardless of whether it's in paper or online, and leveraging the concept of who do you want to be in front of, and then building on a plan to help them get in front of those people, whether it's in the traditional print media, in digital, whether it be on our website, leveraging solutions where we've perhaps helped them with Google search or social media advertising, a 360, one-stop shop approach to help them connect the dots to all of their needs in that capacity. And looking at it more, how can we help you? What are you trying to achieve? And building a plan that fits that. And that's something that, when you're talking about the internet, there's a lot more that you can do than just your own backyard when it comes to online. And, when it comes to our regional, and we have sister products here in Windsor and in Sarnia and beyond. We have clients who in those markets want to reach the Chatham market and vice versa. So, we build out plans that fit each client and their needs and budgets to ensure that they're reaching the right people for their particular service or product.
Cool. One of the things I did, as I said, I was looking on both of the sites, and I noticed, I want to get your thoughts on ad blockers, because, so I went on your site, Bruce, and I didn't notice any ad blockers blocking anything. I saw all of the ads, at least I think I saw all of the ads, I couldn't tell. And then I jump over, and I think it was on Chatham Daily for that one. And there's an entire section that was blocked out, but there was other ads that were not blocked out. So I'll start with you, because you had the one that was blocked out that I could easily tell. I mean, the ad blockers are a reality. In fact, I tried to figure out how to turn off the ad blocker on my device. It's not even a click anymore. It used to be an option that was right there, really easy.
Right.
How are you taking on that type of challenge?
So there's a few different ways of slicing that one, and it's, without seeing what you saw,
Sure.
I couldn't really say, because it depends on what browser you're using, what plugin you're using, if you're using one at all.
We're also on a corporate network, and they may be blocked by our IT. I don't know.
I'm not sure. Chances are no with regards to that, simply because one of the steps we take as a company is we scrutinize nothing makes it onto our network that is, let's call it malware or illegitimate.
Okay.
Like we work very closely with Google, who is our ad servers with the Google ad server network. Everything flows through their back-end system, and there are a lot of checks and balances to ensure that things like that don't make it to our network, where it would be flagged as an issue, if you will. Now, we also have some ads that, because we do support industries like the cannabis industry, for example, which are leveraging what's called age gating. So it may not show you an ad. You may see a gray box, and it might say, please verify you are above 19. To ensure you're not seeing content that is not intended for somebody below a certain age range.
That's fair.
So it's not really an ad blocking, it's more, like I say, an age gating scenario for that particular industry. But the key thing is for us, based on the stats we've seen on our network nationally, the majority of our campaigns are not significantly impacted or impacted at all in some cases by ad blockers. The campaigns we run for our clients serve, their ads serve. We have stats that show that, and the ad blockers would, if they were blocking the ads, they wouldn't show, and we wouldn't be having our campaigns run. So
yeah.
we aren't experiencing those issues, so we can say with confidence that they're out there, but the vast majority of people, based on the numbers we see, isn't impacting our local advertisers or even our regional and national advertisers.
Gotcha. And Bruce, have you encountered any challenges with that, or have you had to change models a little bit?
Not really. We've augmented. I mean, we have some Google AdSense that's on there, but the vast majority is local. Plus, it's augmented somewhat with the OCNA. There's some material that flows through from the Ontario Community Newspaper Association through their ad reach program, and we run that way. It's filtered through the OCNA, which is it's the overseeing body basically for community newspapers in the province. I can see. I hate pop-up ads personally. And those are just spam, and more spam.
Yeah, if either of that happened to me today, I'd be giving you a lot of grief.
Well, we don't allow that kind of advertising on our websites for that exact reason. It's sorry to jump in.
Exactly.
It's very intrusive, and
Yeah.
most, let's call it legitimate media, stay away from that because they don't want to annoy their readers.
Thank you, both of you, for not doing that. Because it was really popular. It was really popular. It was really common to do years ago. But
now it's clickbait on social media that takes you over to some place and just spams a whole bunch of advertising all over the place, and you're wondering why you're there.
Yep. Yeah. No. That's a really good point. I have forgotten all about the pop-ups. That's not show me age.
If I could add one more thing to that as well. I mean, at the end of the day, we aren't doing our readers a service to highlight that point. If we are making it a frustrating experience for them to visit our websites, we're going to lose that audience.
Yeah.
More importantly, if we aren't helping our local advertisers be seen and be seen in a way where they're reaching the people they want to reach locally, we're also doing them a disservice. So it's in all of our collective best interest to make it as a good experience for the reader as much as it is for the people who want to click on the ads or read the message and act on that message and buy local.
Yep, that's fair. So I've recently run I was an ad for some of the events we've had going on in both of your publications, and had great response. For those who are curious, we have really good response. Thanks for registering for our events. By the way, there's lots on investck.ca. Get a plug in there. It's
Okay.
No problem.
but so we ran. It was actually the same ad duplicated, ran it on both, and we had great results for that, especially the tax one. And this is going to go up tomorrow. So they had tax ones tonight. So apologies if you are just getting this, but. As soon as we ran the ads, we actually saw a bump in terms of the number of people registered, which is telling that that's an audience that we had been running maybe 2 days at that point on social media a little bit, just sort of letting people know about what was going on. But as soon as we ran it in the paper, it was a different story. We saw an influx, and that was, I can't say it was to either of you. All I can say is we ran it on both of your publications, and it worked. So thank you.
Shared impact.
Shared impact. So it was that was a great story. I just wanted to relay that as an example of something that worked out well for us with that type of content.
And if I could add a point to that, I think that it's one of the things that we know with digital marketing is it's highly measurable. And that what you just described is not something that is a new phenomenon. And it speaks to the value of having a presence in a printed product, because we are able to see from talking to our customers, and we look at their reports, when they run an ad in print, there is a noticeable uptick in their web traffic shortly after that paper hits the street, whether it's a daily or a weekly, whatever. And the value of being in both spaces, and that eyeballs are looking here, and it's causing a result on the smart device or the tablet or whatever.
That was so we had a session on analytics last week in Wallaceburg, and that was exactly one of the points that was brought up by the Digital Service Squad, is to say, first off, please at least look at your analytics. But point two is look at what you're doing in terms of print media, look what you're doing in terms of radio, in terms of all these different things, and see if you can identify those bumps so that you know what's working, what's hitting an audience, what isn't, or what you might need to change because maybe the message wasn't the right message. So, because there's been discussion about what is Digital Service Squad out there talking about. And what they're talking about is taking bricks and mortar and just helping them make sure that they've got access to tools that everybody else has access to, and understanding the impacts of them, such as the impacts of using print media. or online media for your websites, right? So that they can understand it.
Well, newspapers remain a trusted news source, and with
Absolutely.
this diversification of and exposure of where news comes from, you're like, okay, this paper, we're 6.5 years old. The Daily's 100 plus.
Yeah.
But its roots were committed to delivering content, and by because every week, every few days of the week, there's someone, a press is firing up. That's a real tangible dollar coming out there, rather than somebody in their mother's basement in a bathrobe clicking a few keystrokes and then posting it online. We're committed to providing local accurate news, and the advertisers respect that. They know that brings eyeballs. If their ads are placed strategically around the content, it brings eyeballs onto their ads, and it helps create the call to action, so to speak.
It's perfect.
I mean, when you look online, there's that to some extent on websites for sure, news websites, and then you incorporate social media. I look at social media advertising as more billboarding. It's like as you're driving by, it's like, okay, now it's in my mind. Online, if you're reading the story, you expect the advertisements around the daily news site or our voice site, and it's like you see there and you can click for more information. You're more inclined to make that click there than you are through social media. Again, because you're surfing for something completely different. What's my friend up to? What's my mother doing? What's my child doing? Things like that. Whereas here, you're expecting to see advertising because they know it pays their bills.
Yeah,
and it's not like it's an interference in their experience.
Yes.
Whereas in social media, when you see a sponsored link, you're like, what the heck is that doing there?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's very fair. I'm all out of questions. Believe it or not, we've been a good 20 minutes, half an hour, and chatting. Is there anything else you want to add? Start with you, Aaron, if you want.
I just again like to reiterate the importance that all local media brings to the community. I think that we all play a role collectively in helping make a difference for the readers, for the community, for the advertisers that support us, and to understand that we're here to continue to do our best for the community, for our advertisers, and ensure that we are living up to the expectations on us and keeping what we do at the forefront of being relevant and making a difference.
Perfect. Bruce, what do you thoughts?
Very true. I mean, it's all about the reader, it's all about the advertiser in terms of meshing that information flow for them and to them. Right? It's a back and forth, and it's necessary for sharing the news, it's necessary for sharing the advertiser's information. It's necessary for helping to build the community. I mean, let's face it. If you're not getting information, if you're someone who's living in an apartment or owns a house here and you don't care about property taxes, you just pay that every 3 months, sign a check off, and move on. You're not invested in your community, mentally. Really, it's scary if someone's in that situation. I don't care where my property taxes go. I don't care if the school buses are running. I don't care if a business says they're going to locate here, hasn't located here, or if there have been layoffs at another business. You want to know about that because it impacts you. It doesn't matter what you do. If you run a clothing business, if the economy is going bad and there are job losses, it'll impact you.
Absolutely.
Definitely fewer people with disposable income as a result. You need to know that. You need to plan for that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And quick question, do you know when the Soup Nazi's coming back again?
I don't know.
You don't know?
They worked for years to get him here. Really nice guy, by the way.
Oh, that's good.
Really nice guy.
That's good to know. Well, thank you both for being here. I really
It's our pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll make sure to tag in there the website, both of your websites and contacts and everything. But this was fantastic. We're trying to get out and talk to everyone. So last week I had a discussion with Dave over at Instaprint, talk a bit about print, a different type of print, as well as all the wonderful things he's going on. So we're trying to reach out to everyone in the community and discuss the different types of media options. Because I'll tell you, the number one question we get from businesses is, how do I do my marketing? And we're not going to recommend one place over another, but we will say our preference is to find somebody local.
Absolutely.
And that's our number one goal, is to say, hey, find a local solution for what you're looking for. Even if it's local and you're going international, find somebody who can help you out on that scale. Because, well, we grow for the world and we have great products that go everywhere, which is awesome. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks,
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Bruce.
And thank you for watching.